Hi, everybody. So thank you so much for being here. So if you are alive, you've noticed that there is a rapid change right now that's been going on that are kind of like against the norms, along with lots of other news that might be evoking feelings of fear or uncertainty. We have definitely been hearing from lots of moms who aren't sure how to regulate themselves on a daily basis, along with the everyday challenges of just being a mom. So we're so grateful today. We are here with licensed Kansas City licensed clinical therapist Elizabeth Kaufman. So Elizabeth, thank you so much, seriously, so much for being here on such last minute notice. Um, seriously, I just can't tell you how much we appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So a lot of us are feeling, as I kind of just alluded to, a lot of us are feeling a little out of control or maybe dysregulated. I can't tell you how many text exchanges
Mhm.
Sarah and I have had about just feeling so out of
hmm
control. What's the word? We've been talking about our nervous systems.
Yeah, like dysregulated.
Like dysregulated. I literally was texting with Sarah and I told her I just Googled how to reset a nervous system. Googled it. Just because of the amount of news and changes in the obvious last few weeks. So first question for you is this reaction normal to feel so out of control?
Well, our brains are really designed to keep us safe, and they do a really good job of sending signals to, as you already alluded to, our nervous system to tell us when there's danger to ourselves or to our loved ones, or even sometimes to our values. And when our brain does find that threat, a dysregulated nervous system is the response, and it means your nervous system is working. It's in response to a threat. And so I think, yeah, what we're seeing this a lot right now. It is normal to respond to something that feels scary or uncertain or unknown, with what we kind of consider a threat mode response, which can look different for everyone. And I think that that's kind of an important point too. I think a lot of times we think of dysregulation maybe as big and outward and maybe crying or angry.
Hmm.
But dysregulation can look like shutdown too.
Right.
It can look like calm. And we even kind of tend to pathologize that outward emotion, but it can also be someone who's really disconnected from their emotions when when that uncertainty or that threat gets perceived. And the more you have of that happening at once, the harder it is to calm that down. So it does make sense. I also think, we have to look at kind of like a cumulative piece of this too, of, we've just kind of recently come out of, I mean, when I say recently, because my sense of time is warped, but really of COVID and the impact of all of
Yes.
that and the
Right.
uncertainty that was brought with that. And there's pieces of this that have some similar feelings. And it's very normal to respond with dysregulation. It means your system and your body's working right, actually.
Right. So that's the good news, right?
Good
It
news.
does not feel
It does feel
like it's
good.
working right.
Yeah.
But that is, I think it's always helpful to know, like, biologically or just how we're made, that that is a typical response
hmm
because I feel like the past few weeks, there's many times where I'm like, why am I feeling like this?
Mhm.
Um, and I sometimes I think I don't give enough credit to the context. So that's
Mhm.
really helpful to hear that. So Sarah and I have been a little out of our minds. What about those people amongst us, which there's probably equal amount,
hmm
that are kind of like, why is everybody upset? They aren't feeling that same feeling of dysregulation or upset, or out of control.
Yeah, I think that can be confusing when you see people that you respect or you care about or you love who are reacting in a way that you don't feel personally. And I think a lot of times our instincts as humans is to try to fix it for someone. So by telling them things like it's going to be okay, or finding ways to um, try to help them feel better. And I would just caution that sort of like writing reflex, and just encourage folks to lean in with curiosity. um, and work to understand where that fear might be coming from, where that worry might be coming from, what piece of information do you maybe have that maybe I haven't heard. And of course, you're welcome to share your own piece of information too, or that kind of exchange is very important actually right now. But I really encourage the folks who are maybe feeling a little confusion around loved ones or friends alarm to be curious and to lean in and to stay present with their own need to fix or make it feel better because like we just talked about, if we feel threat, when we respond to threat, that's healthy. And if we have a lot of people feeling that way, we don't walk into, a room full of people who are hurting at a doctor's office and say, well, your arm doesn't look that bad to me. I don't know that you really need to be here. It seems like maybe you're being alarmist. Like, I don't know everything that happened. I don't know how your arm's feeling. And I don't really, and I'm not a doctor either. So I might get curious and ask some questions, and then let you decide how to take care of yourself as best as possible. And I'm going to try to support you with your pain.
Right. That's such a good analogy.
And so a good segue of taking care of ourselves. What do you have some tips on kind of the short term? It's the afternoon, I have to go pick up my kids and I
Yeah.
just watch the news
Yeah.
and you know, sometimes I'll pick up my kids and scream at them because I'm so dysregulated that, it's hard to even parent or be a good friend or do any of those things. So in the short term, when you're having those out of control feelings, what are some things you can do to get that regulation or control back?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't love this answer, but I really think that we have to really start with compassion for ourselves. And that can be confusing to know what does it look like to give ourselves compassion, and a lot of us are not good at doing that. But if I were to ask most moms, how would you give compassion to one of your children when they're having a rough time? You know exactly how to do it. You know exactly the language. You know exactly the tone. Maybe even the actions. Maybe they need a cookie. Maybe they need a snack.
Little treat.
A little treat.
A treat, right? Exactly. Maybe they need to lie down, all of those things, which we don't always have as options as moms.
Right.
But we can engage with ourselves and really cultivate a relationship with ourselves that is compassionate talk. Elizabeth Gilbert used to talk about how she'd write these letters to herself and address herself as, um, is my love, my sweet love, and really learning to speak to ourselves that way of like what's going on right now for me, that curiosity to with ourselves, like you're not okay, but you're okay. You're not okay, but you are okay right now, of just talking exactly the way you would talk to somebody you love, of starting there. I think without that compassion, we can't really bridge into some of the more difficult, I think, regulation tools without shoving it aside. So just that compassion is going to be really grounding for our nervous system. Um, and and from there, we get a little more regulated, even just in this kind of, you're okay right now. Or you're not okay right now, you're not okay. And I'm gonna look after you. I'm gonna take care of you. Same language you would use with your child. I've got you. I've got us. Um, and in that place, just starting to name, okay, what is coming up for me? What's the emotion? Naming your emotion is a right left brain activity, so it's automatically going to regulate that brain. What am I feeling right now? Which is sometimes really tough to name when you're totally overwhelmed.
I was just listening to a podcast today that said, like, when they open the news, they
Yeah.
tell themselves beforehand, you might not like what you read. It's
Yes.
probably going to make you feel angry, but you've
Yes.
decided to read it anyway, but kind of prepping themselves mentally are just doing that self-talk of,
Mhm.
I won't like this.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. And that's actually one of the other things that I was going to name too, is really anticipating those kind of more high anxiety times. You named the exact time that I would have said too, which is we'll pick up, right?
Yeah.
You don't know
Yeah.
how your kid's day was. Maybe it was good, maybe it was bad. You don't know how much homework they might have. You
Hmm.
don't know what kind of mood they're going to be in. So your anxiety is already up already, and then you're navigating maybe that you just did read, um, like the plane crash last week, right? Which is
Right.
just so devastating. And
Hmm.
also those types of things, make us afraid too of what happened. Do I need to be worried? All of those things. And so anticipating those times that you're like, this is going to be okay. What do I need? How can I pre-anticipate the things that feel like they're going to be hard, which might be, staying calm with our children, or and I don't even mean calm, but just feeling like we are in control of our actions.
Hmm.
What do I need right now to go? They might get in the car and they might be cranky. They might get in the car and they might have tons of homework that maybe they didn't finish in class. So now we have to set our just anticipating what is going to happen next, and we're preparing for it because we're already like our capacity is so already minimized from everything else that we've taken in. So those things that might feel like we normally can kind of tackle them in a normal day, or even struggle with them on a normal day,
Hmm.
Mhm.
right?
Right.
That capacity is just it's smaller. So I think that exactly like you said, the news, whatever you're about to engage in, of going, this might be hard. And I'm preparing for that. And I'm preparing to take some breaths right now, and breathe. And also it's okay to say, because this is like often the life of parents and moms, especially, I think, is there's not a lot of time to get real curious about how I'm feeling.
Hmm.
It's okay to say, like, I'm going to come back to this later. Like, I'm going to come
Mhm.
back to it later. I'm not, because I think a lot of us are feeling that right now, right? Like, we're just one more thing, and there's so much that we're
Mhm.
trying to process.
Mhm.
One of
Yeah.
the things I do when I'm like panicking, which I learned from my therapist, was
Mhm.
like cold water,
Oh,
like kind of probably the ice bath theory, but like hands or even like face and
a
really cold,
doable ice
like
bath.
ice water,
Yes.
because it
Yeah.
kind of just switches.
Right.
I
I
don't know.
think that too. That's a good one. And I think
It's
too,
like when you're
like,
in panic mode.
right. And I think like Elizabeth, do you feel like there's like a self-awareness piece of like, I know that if I am reading, if I'm on my phone doom scrolling all this
Yeah.
nightmare, within the hour of the I'm going to pick up my kids or my
Hmm.
kids are going to get home, I
Yeah.
then am a psychopath when my children come into my car or
Hmm.
my house. So I'm wondering if part of it is just knowing yourself and how you metabolize
Yeah.
information.
No, I
Choosing to maybe not do it at
boundaries.
that time,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, I want to kind of address both of those, because I think one of my other tips is to get into your body, and
Right.
that, like, that ice, that cold water is a great way. I like really practical ways, because I'm not
Yes.
somebody who my nature isn't to like things like mindfulness and
Nope.
all of that, but unfortunately it all works, so
You're
I have
among
to do
friends.
it. But it does work.
I'm
So
sure.
Right.
but
Sure.
the more elevated you are, the more tactile you need,
Hmm.
Right.
those kind of cues to be. And so even, I encourage people to have water if you're in a meeting and you're feeling that elevation, or elevation in terms of emotion, and that sip of water, holding that water in your mouth, all your attention going on that water. I'll have clients sometimes just, pay attention to the texture of their chair underneath,
Hmm.
things that you can do anywhere. The steering wheel, when you're driving, especially if it's cold, because it's, even more helpful. There's some things, just kind of get us into, our parasympathetic nervous system, pulling our ears. I'm a big fan of rocking motions. There's a reason we rock babies, that bilateral stimulation. So even sometimes when I'm in therapy, it doesn't mean I'm dysregulated, but it's not abnormal for me to have, some swaying. Getting into your body and centering your body as corny as it sounds, coming back to your breathing, just okay, I'm putting all my attention here when I'm, and that really, that's not an exchange for any of the emotional work.
Right.
That is to help bring it down so we can do the
Mm-hmm.
emotional work, if that makes
Sure.
sense.
Yep.
Um, and Megan, I think to your point too, that those boundaries, knowing it is okay. No one is single-handedly up, holding up the world by their 24/7, awareness of the news cycle.
Do you hear that?
It's
That's what she says.
I
Sarah
mean,
needed
as
to hear
far
that
as
tonight.
I am aware. So, you're not you're not letting anyone down. You're not betraying your own values. You are not I'm a journalism major, and I have a high value on, staying engaged and aware, and I have taken many, many breaks from the news in the past
Mhm.
handful of years, which I used to really look down on people who are like, I don't like the news. It makes me sad.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, it is sad. And that's why we have to pay attention at times.
Right.
But I also think there's a flip side to the 24 hours, the 24/7 news cycle that we have, that you have to ask yourself, and if I'm getting updated on every single story and every single action or shooting or crash, like how is that actually making me a better citizen or more aware for my
Right.
community or my own family? And so knowing the things that curating your own news a bit, maybe if you have those tickers or notifications on your phone,
Mhm.
maybe that's not helpful. Maybe
Right.
Mhm.
that's an 8 a.m. check in the morning that you do a scan. And also you have to know, are you the person who clicks the worst stories? And is that, I mean, I am. So I've had to learn like that. I don't need to click every sad story. Like
Right.
there's not, that there's nothing there for me. So and I would say similar with social media. Glennon Doyle just talked about how she got off social media and that the effects on her central nervous system
Mhm.
were, and just her whole outlook,
Right.
were to the degree of the effects of when she got sober.
Wow.
And so I think we can talk about the news, but social media really can have a similar sort of impact. But unlike the news, we then feel the emotion that comes up with whoever we're connected to who might be saying these things, or even our own, like, should I respond? All of those
Yeah.
pieces, which is not, in my opinion, inherently wrong or bad, but it is going to take from our take.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I feel like too, I feel like I've been struggling with putting my need for like engagement with all this above my roles as
Mhm.
a mom or a wife or a friend. I feel like that's been my priority. I don't know
Mm.
why that
You're gonna
is.
save the world.
Save the world first,
Mhm.
raise my poor innocent children
Yeah.
second. But truly, it's really interesting how that's just kind of how the cookie has crumbled the past few weeks. And that's why we're talking to you, is just for kind of a reset on, okay, this is not going to go away. So how can we recalibrate and move forward?
Right. And I think, I mean, I have a lot of stories on how people have, responded to the last couple weeks, and it's been different for everyone.
Sure.
And whatever you did, I would say that was your brain trying to keep you feeling safe.
Right.
And now we can like Marie Kondo it. If it's not serving us anymore, we can say, thank you, that
Hmm.
maybe that did help me get through. And now if it's not serving, it's time to go, yeah, what's a long-term plan here that will feel like it's serving me? Because a lot of people, yeah, have stories around just the things that have come up for them. Or my one of my friends who's a therapist in another state was like, I recognize that I have a lot of emotion right now, and I'm not drinking for
Mm,
a while.
interesting. Yeah.
And I was really proud of her. I've had other
Wow.
people who are binge watching, like I'm binge watching shows, and I don't even know why, and I don't even like this show, and
Hmm.
all of it. Just once again, we're just gonna go, okay, let's give ourselves some compassion.
Right.
And like you said, Megan, and just kind of reset.
Yeah. So Elizabeth, you kind of touched on this a second ago, but So we talked a little bit about like in the short term, like in the moment, how can we reset? What are your thoughts on maybe some effective long-term strategies or habits to develop that kind of can protect our peace, if you will, and our ability to still be an effective partner or parent, while not being completely disengaged from the obvious things going on around us? Like, how do you do both long term moving forward
Hmm.
that isn't splashing your face with water or breathing? Breathing's good, but
Yeah.
long
Well,
term strategies.
I think that some of those short-term strategies might become people's long-term strategies too, in some
Hmm.
ways of
Hmm.
really, if this is the time that you learn to talk to yourself with kindness and love, that's a long-term relationship with
Right,
yourself.
right,
And to give yourself grace when your emotions are high, or naming your emotions, all of those things, I think, or getting into your body in any way. But I think the biggest thing in terms of long term is to really get clear with yourself and maybe your partner, on what is our locus of control right now. I I used to be a teacher in with Teach for America, and we taught in the Kansas City school districts. That's where I was placed. And one of the core values was your locus of control, with the understanding you're going to go into classrooms that might have books or might not be resources for books, all of those things, and you have to figure out what are the things you can control, rather than spending all your time being frustrated or upset or frantic about what you don't have or what resources you're missing. And I think now is a really good time to go, what are the things I have control over? And a small scale, right? Maybe like even drinking water and taking care of myself, but also maybe it's that we talk to our kids. We have locus of,
right.
that's in our locus of control on educating our kids on our values or on things that are happening, um, creating, curious conversations with them that have them think critically. And then I also think, well, what is our locus of control that connects maybe to something bigger and deeper? Um, because I think that that's within all of us, that desire to have to create change. I don't think there's anybody out there who doesn't want a better world, or doesn't want a safer world. Um, and so figuring out what is an area we have impact on, and what does that look like to be following through. And I think that that gives some permission to say, okay, so if this is kind of our specific thing and this is what it looks like now, we don't have to feel pulled everywhere and everything. This is kind of the thing that we're putting our hands on. And the other two things I would say is community. I think it's really important right now, really, really important. Um, like you said, you guys are getting texts, I'm getting texts, people who are just like,
Yeah.
what's going on, or here's the impact for me, or here's the impact in my world. And I think even there we have to have boundaries. It's okay to say I don't have the all of this, none of this is happening in a void in our own lives, right? We're dealing maybe with our own life stressors or family members who are ill or any of those things. So it's okay to say I can't constantly be, in conversation too around whatever hard thing is happening in the world right now. But
Sure.
having that community and having that support and people who bring you joy, and connection, that is probably, I would say, the biggest long-term strategy I'd have. And therapy. Therapy.
Amen. Amen. Louder for those in the back.
Hmm.
Shameless therapy plug. It's great to have a place.
Yes. Yes.
There is a
Yes, it
lot of,
is.
therapy at all costs if you're looking for it or needing it. Um, it's important to have support, and it's important, everybody has their own individual needs, to have somebody who can help you go, these are things that you might need to be maybe even asking for more from a partner or from your family, in terms of your individual support.
That's really good. Do you have any other thoughts,
No,
questions, thoughts?
I think this is great.
Well, it's
Lots
all
to-
fixed, so I'm feeling good.
We figured it out. Emergency session worked.
Right. God for Elizabeth.
We'll both be in your office tomorrow.
Right, right. 8 a.m. 8 a.m.
I'll be there.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for your thoughts and expertise and all this because it's just really helpful. I feel like everything has it's kind of like when you like hit the eight ball and the balls all go everywhere. I feel like everyone's just kind of like phew, and
Mhm.
everybody
Yeah.
needs to be like
That's
brought
a
back.
good,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel like my brain's been. I just need to like bring it all back into the little triangle and
Yeah.
Yeah.
recalibrate. So
Mm.
this has been so helpful. So helpful. Thank you so much for your time. Seriously.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an important
Absolutely.
conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks.